50 years ago, in 1971, I was one of the first 5 female agents hired by the United States Secret Service. History books said we shot holes in the glass ceiling when there were few opportunities for women. In fact, there was no glass in that ceiling. In those days, women were expected to become wives or mothers if they wanted a career, nurses, teachers, or secretaries. That about covered it. But here I was, chosen to be one of the first female federal agents in the Secret Service. Daunting. First, I had to prove I was worthy of trust and confidence and pass a top secret security clearance. Then they trained us in jiu-jitsu, hand-to-hand combat, investigations, and of course firearms. Clearly, I knew it was going to be a challenge to convince the men of the Secret Service and the world, as far as that's concerned, that women could do this. We had to try harder, be better, jump higher, and shoot straighter, even if it scared us to death. We were the first. No one was quite ready to be, they really didn't know what to expect. When we were sworn in, the reporters didn't write that 5 of us were competent, intelligent, strong women who entered the Secret Service for the first time in a 106-year history. Instead, they wrote about our hair color, our height, and our smart figures. So there I was, 24 years old, wearing stylish boots, carrying a chic handbag, wearing a matching suede vest, ready to make history. Well, after being sworn in, they ceremoniously gave me a heavy cardboard box with my gun, my commission book, my bullets, and a shiny set of handcuffs. Oh boy, I thought, I'm gonna need a bigger purse. Then I noticed an envelope peeking out from underneath the .357 Magnum service revolver with an American Express card in my name. I was thrilled. In those days, women didn't get credit. The only way you could get a credit card was in your father's name or your husband or even your little brother, if they signed on the bottom line. So I slipped that card in my wallet, put it in my big new purse, and went on to make history. I could tell you some really great stories about how I protected the President of the United States, the Kennedy children, or worked buying counterfeit money on the bad streets of New York and LA. But that's not what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk to you about love, my 40-year love story with a man that in the end hardly knew my name. You know, dating when you're a Secret Service agent was tough. Once I went out with a pompous guy who was teasing me about being an agent and the fact that I had a set of handcuffs in my purse. Finally, I'd had enough. Whipped those stainless steel babies out and cuffed him to the chair. It was funny until I realized I didn't have the key. Well, driving back to my apartment to get it, it occurred to me that the service was not just a job. It was going to be a way of life. It was clear I was not going to land a husband with all that stuff in my purse. Then I met a great guy who didn't really seem to mind. He was crazy about me and I was crazy about him. One day he proposed to me, get this, over the phone while I'm training on the range with my Uzi submachine gun. Kate, he said, I've got the ring, will you marry me? It's not a good time, I whispered. Well, eventually I did say yes. It was a tough decision. I really loved the job and the life, but I just couldn't have it all. So I returned all that stuff in my purse to the Secret Service property room. My purse was really pretty empty at that point, but I married Cecil Childers. That big old purse of mine was empty, like I said, but I pulled the worn leather strap over my shoulder and moved to South Texas, where I loaded it up again with the standard issue a wife and eventually a mother would carry. It was a big change. Cecil was a tall, handsome Texan, and he adored me, like I said, and I adored him. He was a psychiatrist, and he loved his patients. He was board certified in adult and geriatric psychiatry and psychopharmacology. But it was his heart and his sense of humor that really set him apart. In the midst of assessing their mental situation, their serious mental illness, Cecil would lean in and say, you know what? Life is just too important to take too seriously. Or he'd say, you know why we're not all here? Because we're not all there. Breaking the ice, so to speak. His patients loved him. Ironically, Cecil would be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Who would have thought? And I would become his bodyguard. My new role as his caregiver in many ways mirrored what I had been doing in my assignments in the Secret Service. To keep the person I was to protect alive and safe, that was the most important. But when it came to the Kennedy children, John and Caroline, there were some unofficial parts of the job. To keep them a little happy, best you could, entertained, and keep them from embarrassing themselves or their famous mother, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. And I did it. On occasion, I became known as the Pistol Packin Nanny, but that's okay, it was a great assignment. Let me give you an example. At the last minute, Mrs. Onassis decided to take the children to the opening, decided not to rather. She was going to go to the opening of the Kennedy Center in Washington, and she decided not to take them. Unofficially, I was tasked with keeping the kids and a gaggle of Kennedy cousins entertained at the compound in Hyannisport. How about we go to the drive-in, I proposed, and organized a popcorn-popping adventure to see Kelly's Heroes. Of course, they wanted to sneak in like real kids. So amidst all the giggling in the back, I told them to duck down and get behind the seats. At the ticket booth, I asked for 2 tickets, but held up 7 fingers. Although I only made $7,500 a year as a special agent, I had enough money to make in my purse to pay for those tickets. I really don't remember much about the movie, but I was so glad the kids had fun and relieved we didn't break the law or get caught. Creating some fun in Cecil's life and entertaining him was not unlike that with my new assignment. When he quit practicing, he didn't have much to do. No hobbies, no interest, nothing outside of medicine. So I kind of looked back at those Secret Service years and became aware of the fact that I'd been pretty good at planning events and travel, even for the President of the United States. We had an old Airstream trailer, so I loaded him up and our Cocker Spaniel Ellie on board and toured most of the United States. Both coasts, most of the West, the Grand Canyon, and the bayous of Louisiana. We even hit the Lewis and Clark Trail from Montana all the way out to Oregon. Over several years, I pulled it over 30,000 miles and became skilled at backing up the darn thing. Most women in the group really were afraid to do it. They didn't think they could. They were simply too scared to try. That is, they never drove. But for an old agent like me, it was just part of the job. It was the trip of the lifetime, even if he didn't remember much of it. When I was protecting the Kennedy kids, the paparazzi were always looking for a sellable photo of the president's daughter, especially if it had put her in a compromising situation. Caroline was just a teenager and really didn't care, but her mother might. It was my job to make sure they didn't get that shot. For example, she joined some other kids waiting in an off-limit fountain in Austria one time I was with her, and I kept that picture off the front page. Of course I did. I was good at my job. Cecil had no trouble embarrassing me. I was an easy target. As the Alzheimer's progressed, he became more childlike and loved to tell stupid potty mouth jokes. I didn't like it, and he knew it, despite the Alzheimer's. I'd complain. He'd say, "I'll never do it again." Of course he did, and he did. I should have just given it up and just let it go. Even with Alzheimer's, he made sure I didn't take myself too seriously. Finally, another piece of advice. Keeping your protectee alive was my most important job as a special agent in the Secret Service. In my new role protecting Cecil, it just wasn't possible. There was no cure. All I could do, and all you can do, is provide support and give him a relatively comfortable, safe, and happy life. And do the best you can to keep yours intact. With that said, here are some nuggets of advice for you to keep in your pocket or in the bottom of your purse. They're not clinical, just observations that I collected during my journey, and I hope they'll be of help to you. Number 1, keep a sense of humor. Absolutely imperative. In the service, I learned that a sense of humor was an absolute must. I'll give you an example. One day I was assigned as a partner to a man who wasn't really excited about my being his partner. The men weren't thrilled to have us on the job, I will say. That's another story. During one arrest, my partner, this big guy who could have been playing for the Dallas Cowboys, said, "You're so tough, you break down the door." I smiled and said, "You're so tough, you break down the door and I'll shoot them. I'm a lot better shot than you are." We both laughed. We knocked. They opened the door and we became good friends. Very good friends. Even in the midst of being a caregiver, the most difficult job you'll ever have, you need to take a deep breath and laugh. As we drove across the country in our Chevrolet, remember that ad about seeing the world in your Chevrolet? Actually, ours was a Ford 250 Super Duty diesel. Cecil loved to count trucks out loud, mile after mile after mile. I didn't say anything at first, but finally, it was driving me crazy. I said, "Why do you do this?" And his answer was short. "Because I can," he said sadly. So I finally understood and made a game of it. I gave him a pad of paper and a pencil and asked him to record his numbers silently, which he agreed to do. And when we hit 50, we'd go to Dairy Queen, and I'll be honest, I liked going there too. So do yourself a favor, laugh at the jokes, make a game out of the trucks in your life. You would not believe how many white pickup trucks cruise the American highways. Number 2, put your person in the schedule. I'll admit it, I got angry as his disease worsened and my life was taken away bit by bit. I had a busy life, but I wish I'd made his schedule as important as mine. He didn't have much to do, so he demanded, I'm saying demanded, I take him on a golf cart ride every afternoon at exactly 5 o'clock. I didn't take it very seriously, thinking we could do that anytime. I would ask myself, did it really make a difference what time we went? Yes, it really did. It made the world of difference to him, and I wish I'd paid more attention to that. Number 3, lower your expectations. Cecil had been a brilliant man and now watched mindless TV. I would suggest PBS or Nova, something that was educational or entertaining. But I had to lower my expectations to what I thought he should be watching and spending doing his time. It really didn't make any difference. He loved the movie Three Amigos. I'd sing you the song, but I'm not going to. He watched it over and over again. He didn't like change. I've heard that's really true of many Alzheimer's patients. I had to accept a routine and boredom in our lives. I thought it was my job to make him better when making him happier would have been a far better call. And being a good agent, I was prepared. I planned ahead and had DVDs stashed everywhere. Yes, even in my purse. Well, in the movie, the Three Amigos saved the day. It was silly, fun, and Cecil loved the pretty ladies. That was okay. Number 4, it's better to be kind than right. With the advice I've shared with you today, I hope there's one thing you will not forget, and simply this: it's better to be kind rather than always trying to be right. In the Secret Service, I really didn't have that option. Kindness wasn't on the table. Split-second decisions had life and death consequences. But caring for a loved one is different. You do have a choice. With Cecil, there were so many times I tried to fix him, downplaying the simple things that were important to him. It just didn't work. When I gave up the fixing and just went along for the ride, I saw it in his piercing blue eyes. It meant the world to him. When I took the time to make a game of counting trucks or sit with him, not just watch, but sit with him and watch the Three Amigos for the umpteenth time, being kind was far better. I did my best, but lost Cecil on July the 4th, 2018. And I'm now on a solo assignment. I used to be the Sherpa carrying everyone else's stuff to the top of the mountain. There's not much in my purse these days. I call it a COVID clutch, filled with hand sanitizer, a mask, and my phone. And of course that old American Express card that says I was a member since 1971. I wouldn't give that up. In one of the most challenging times of our lives, I've chosen to reinvent myself. You can too. I've started a new company. I've finished a book. I planted a garden, got healthy, and lost 50 pounds. Even at a distance, I've been able to keep friends close. This time I didn't need a bigger purse. It took a backpack. These days, it's almost impossible to agree who or what is right or how to fix it. So how about we just stick with kind? Thank you.